watching the Isaiah Factor Uncensored.
And welcome back to the second half hour of the Factor Uncensored. They risk their lives to fight for our country. And even after they leave the battlefield, the fight continues for their own lives. There has been a study released that the number of veteran suicides across the country have been underreported by the Veterans Administration. Our next guest is a former Marine and says nothing could have prepared him for the nightmares after his service.
You have once attempted to take your own life. What took you down that dark path?
So, going to the Marine Corps and you get this brotherhood and sense of belonging and purpose. And, being sent overseas, I was sent over to Afghanistan in 2008, took 21 KIAs and had 189 casualties, which is substantially high compared to most combat units in one deployment. In doing so, coming back and just getting out, losing the camaraderie and so on and so forth that you get in the military, right? But they also don't tell us about the nightmares, the night terrors, the PTSD, the triggers, the loud noises, all that comes with it. And so getting out and having no connection, no purpose, just no sense of belonging, and still having the identity as a Marine that honestly nobody necessarily cares about. I drove myself and it drove me to a point of isolation. I was in active addiction, and in that active addiction became more isolation due to not knowing how to be around people because of the PTSD, the paranoia issues I have because of the combat traumas and stuff. And so,
Josh, when you were around people, what was that like for you? What did it feel like that left you uncomfortable?
It's fear. I mean, I lived in a constant state of fear of the not knowing who I could trust around the next corner, the loud noises. It's embarrassing to, a tire screeches or, something loud goes off and then you instantly jump, or you want to curl up like a little, in a fetal position just complete fear. I literally just complete fear all the time almost. And in doing that, I feel completely embarrassed because here I am, a Marine, right? And I get out of the military and no one understands. No one gets it. They look at you like you don't belong. They act like you don't belong, which then in return drives me back into even more isolation.
Now, were you actually getting those reactions from people, or was that your mind telling you that you were getting those reactions and that you didn't belong?
So I can tell you that we came back from Afghanistan November of 2008. Or October 2008. Marine Corps birthday is November 2000, or November of each year, correct? So we were in Laughlin, Nevada, and as we were in Laughlin, Nevada, we were there for a ball, and a car wreck had happened, and almost all of us in our full dress blues hit the ground, and people looked at us just in complete. I think they were more surprised than we were that us and Marines in dress full uniform hit the ground. And
I guess they didn't understand. You know what I mean?
They don't understand.
Right.
Absolutely not. And I understand the not understanding part, I do, but to continue to sit there and just stare and wonder what's wrong with me, rather than actually simply asking me what's wrong or could they help, it was a point of isolation where it's like these people don't get me and they don't want to get me.
Mm-hmm. Were you willing to share that information with someone if they were to ask you, why did you do that?
At that point, possibly not. And I can even say later down the roads, up until just the past year and a half, I may not have disclosed that full information, but I know that I have gone to specific instances or therapy where I've tried talking about my problems, right? But, most therapists that aren't around fully military veterans and stuff like that, they don't necessarily know how to guide us.
Right.
And though therapy and traumas can be related, they can be in some instances, but a lot of the things that we endure as human beings, we shouldn't, and we're not built that way.
And Josh, when did you attempt to take your life, and how did you try to do it?
2021, I tried overdosing on heroin. That was my last suicide attempt. I did about a gram a shot of heroin and overdosed, and luckily I didn't die.
And so what got you out of the dark on the path that you're on now?
So first and foremost, God, and the PTSD Foundation. And I say that pure and simply because they gave me that stepping stone to actually feel safe to talk about my traumas, to express my needs, to know it's okay to not be okay, and to simply just tell them I'm not okay today. And to have sorry, I'm about getting emotional. To have these other guys around me, surround me, and to say me too, they get it. So in knowing that, though, I don't have an out to run on now either, but I was at a point in my life where I'd pushed away my family, I pushed away my kids, I pushed away my spouse, I've been in some legal issues. And due to all that, I actually have a brother that actually went through this foundation and worked for this foundation. And so that was my last resort, was to call him, and we were not on good terms either. And I reached out to him and he answered the phone. And so they got me to treatment. And from that day forward, I've never looked back, or at least I've tried not to. I know what it's the value in being able to talk. I know the value in being able to tell my story, and to know that it's not just for someone else to hear, it's for healing for myself.
Do you feel like you can breathe now, that you're in a good place?
I absolutely do. Absolutely.
We are glad he is in that place right now. After the break, we hear from the PTSD Foundation of America to talk about how the solution, or what the solutions are, with helping veterans start with you, and how they want to get you involved. The whole purpose of sharing Josh Mayer's story that you just heard from earlier here on The Factor Uncensored was to tell you this. Veteran suicide numbers are on the rise in the United States. Recently, a new study found that the rate among former military officers have doubled, going from 17 deaths per day to about 44. The executive director of the PTSD Foundation of America in Camp Hope will join me now to talk about the importance of shining a light on the issue and what you as a public can do.
Now, David, hearing that suicides are underreported in this country, your thoughts on that?
Well, it's something we have held and stated regularly and often throughout the years, that suicide numbers are underreported. It's a tough conversation to have. No one, first of all, likes to talk about suicide. And then if you start, well, are they arguing over the number? It sounds a little, why are we doing this? But the VA's most recent number has been 17 suicides per day. The study that has just come out is suggesting up to 44 suicides a day, which it's staggering. And
Yeah.
I
mean, how do you make that kind of error in reporting suicides? And you're the VA, you have access to those numbers with veterans in this country.
Well, there's a lot of factors involved in that. Some of it is, how a coroner reports a death can vary from county to county, nevertheless, state to state. So there's a lot of variance there in how those things are determined. But then there's a lot of truly deaths that we'll never know. I mean, there's just no possible way to know. Was it an overdose? Was it a suicide? Does it become splitting hairs? And at some point, it's like, for me, it doesn't matter if you call it suicide or an overdose or whatever it happens to be. It's an unnecessary loss that could have been prevented if the community was aware of what was going on and cared enough to get involved about what's going on. And that's what's kind of agitated me right now, frankly. I mean, no offense to anybody. None is intended by this statement, but I just tell you, we've watched nonstop news about the Queen and who wore what and where people stood. And I get it. I understand that, there's importance, there's great significance, but it doesn't change anybody's life of who wore what or what piece of jewelry they had or where they stood in line. We're talking about men and women who put on the uniform of this country, went to the most godforsaken places on the planet, and coming home and feeling, like Josh mentioned it a couple of different times in a couple of different ways, nobody cares. You hear news stories all day long about all kinds of things. I've seen news stories about some cat lost cat that got found because it activated a Ring camera. How does that make the news? And this story of men and women who are contemplating, and perhaps up to 44 times a day, succeeding and taking their own life. How is that not a national conversation? I don't understand it.
You're absolutely right. And if people feel like this needs to be a national conversation, what people don't realize is you can reach out to your local television stations and ask them, if you're going to be a part of the community, you're going to cover the community, then cover the community. Here's an issue that's important to us. What would you advise people to do, David? You said that you wanted them, the public, to get more involved. How can they help you guys at the PTSD Foundation of America and individuals like Josh Mayer?
Well, one thing that you just mentioned, I posted earlier on my personal Facebook this news story, and please contact your local news agencies and let them know this matter needs to be discussed. So part of our mission of the organization is to save lives, plain and simple. The other part of it is to raise awareness, and that's what we're trying to do, and that's why we're so grateful for you. You've been so faithful in helping us with this. But through our organization, there's so many ways. If they just follow our social media, PTSD USA, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they will see these stories where they may not see them ever on their local news. They can see these stories and share them, and take 3 minutes to read the story. It's not a book. Take 3 minutes. The veterans, I think, are worth a few minutes of our time. We put the bumper sticker on the back of our car, "I support the troops." Well, how about we take a few minutes of our time and prove that we support them? Let's stop talking about, how much pumpkin spice is available, and how can we save some veterans' lives? What can I do to be a part of that? And part of it is just learning about what's going on and then sharing the story. And that's all free, by the way. Doesn't cost anybody a dime to do that.
Absolutely. Just a few minutes of your time. You can step away from Instagram or Twitter for a second and read some important information. And we'll put that information up for you, David. Thank you for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored. And Josh, thank you for sharing your story. And you're on the road to recovery. Congratulations. Just take it one day at a time.
Now, if you or someone you know have served in the military and struggling to manage life after your service, you can call 877-717-PTSD, 877-717-PTSD. That's a combat trauma helpline. You can also call the Suicide Prevention Helpline, which is available around the country, 988. Still ahead here on The Factor Uncensored, stealing money that would go to feeding poor families, the pandemic fraud scheme that has nearly 4 dozen people caught up.